Hi guys, and welcome to Piano and Keyboard Artist, where we discuss the artists related to pianos, keyboards, and synthesizers. And I've got a very special guest today as part of my Violator album review series. I want to introduce you to Mr. Pino Pischetola. Did I say it right?
Yes, right. Yeah, very good. Better than my teachers at school.
Thank God. Amico, how are you today?
Very good, thank you. Very nice.
Whereabout in Italy are you?
Milano.
Milano, see.
Yes.
Listen, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us today on Good Friday.
It's a pleasure.
You must be Catholic. I was Catholic as well.
Yeah, it's yes. Today is we call Venerdì Santo.
Si, that's right. That's right. And to my subscribers, if you hear me saying si and grazie, I used to run an Italian restaurant back in 100 years ago. So I understand the Italian way of speaking and everything. And I'm always so at home with you guys. You're so feel so at home with you. But listen, thank you so much for coming on. Let's jump into this. You were involved with one of the most iconic records in the history of electronic music, in my opinion. Yeah. Depeche Mode, Violator.
Yes.
So let's start off. It was 1989. So how did you get involved with it?
Actually, the Depeche Mode were looking for a studio in Italy because they wanted to record the album in two different places. One was a Puck studio in Denmark, which was more like isolated. And then they wanted to record in Italy, possibly in a city, to have the opposite of isolation. And I was working in this beautiful studio called Logic Studio in Milano. And that was owned by La Bionda Brothers. They were two producers and artists from the 70s doing Italian disco music. And they had a lot of hits. And so they could afford to build this studio that was in the 80s owned by a record company, CGD. But then in the early 80s, they bought it and renewed it with studio designer Andy Munro, English, one of the best. And bought a big SSL desk, and everything was there, like a really high-profile international studio, but was in Milano. And there were 2 or 3 studios like this big in Italy. But Flood, who was the producer, knew that Alan Moulder came there to produce an Italian artist called Gianna Nannini. And so I was assisting Alan Moulder in the mixing stages of this album. And so Flood asked Alan about the studio, and he said it was very, very good. And then he asked if he knew somebody that he can recommend to work on the record as an engineer. And he suggested me, which made me really happy about it. And so I was involved because of this. And the idea was to do a 6-week session to record half of Violator and then finish Personal Jesus, because the mixing of everything else was done later on when they finished after Puck Studios. But Personal Jesus was finished in Milano.
Okay, wow, fascinating bit of history. And if we look at how famous and amazing Violator is, are you proud to be involved in it?
Absolutely. I mean, still today, after 30 years, is one of my biggest credit, if not the biggest credit, if I want to analyze as a success of a record and the importance it had in the music history. And I'm really happy because because the producer was Flood, right? which also is one of the best engineer ever. He worked on so many great records before Violator. And to me, because sometimes you work in the studio with producers, but they are more like not technical producer, but more of a concept producer.
Yeah.
So in a way, you can, if you turn the wrong knob, they don't even realize it. You know what I mean? But with Flood, with his ears, I was so scared of every move I was doing because I was with one of the best that could really understand if I could make it or not as an engineer. And funnily enough, because we were used to go to clubs after the sessions, the studio were finished. One night I asked him after a few days if I was doing well. And he said, yes, don't worry, you are doing well. Otherwise, after 10 minutes, you will not even make coffees. Because he said, this record is too important to me to mess it because the engineer is not at the level. And he said, if this makes you happy, this happens in 80% of the studios where I go. Flood was like firing the in-house engineer after 10 minutes.
Oh, right.
Because it was not good enough. So I was panicking in a way and nervous, but also because of this pressure, I tried to do my best. And also I didn't have a big responsibility. You know what I mean? My responsibility was to manage the studio. I knew all the wiring and every machine, how it worked, to record, to put microphones. And in a way, I was sure that if I was messing something or make it wrongly, they will fix it for me. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There was not the possibility of something recorded badly because nobody realized it. I mean, the level there was a top level you can have.
I can imagine you being you must have been, how old were you? You must have been in your 20s, quite young.
Yeah, I was like 25, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're, as you say, it's that position where you're nervous, but you're just nervous enough that you try a little bit harder. But he obviously saw you were enthusiastic. He was, did you say Flood? He used to fire a lot of engineers.
No, I mean, this was he said. He says that when he goes in other studios, if he doesn't find the engineer good enough, he does it himself because he's so good at it. You know what I mean? So he has to do producer and engineer. In this case, he was doing the producer, and also when some decisions had to be made on the sound, obviously he was on it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So obviously Flood, Alan Wilder has spoken about Flood being, you spoke about that earlier, Pino. Some producers are more like executive producers.
Yeah.
You know, they come in, they know, they the concept, they understand the concept.
Yes.
But Alan Wilder spoke about Flood being like a 360-degree producer. Now, he could program a sampler, he could use analog synthesizers, modulars, so and what he called screwdriver work. So he was a really fully fledged producer. And you learned a lot from him, did you?
Absolutely. I mean, I was watching every move. And the studio, you imagine there was a big control room, and this huge truck comes from England. He puts down all the flight cases with the instruments, and then he goes drives back to England without even eating. You know what I mean? It was and so they brought so many instruments, and it took me, I think, a couple of days just to wire everything up and have it ready. And the control room was full of synthesizers and samplers, and everywhere you turn around there is instruments. And also Flood brought his own, the Roland System 700, and some Akai samplers, some MIDI Moog, and And so technologically there was a lot. I mean,
yes. So you obviously this was the first single. This was Personal Jesus. Is that right?
no, I mean, we started recording. I think the first song was a Policy of Truth.
Okay.
We did a Policy of Truth, Word in My Eyes, Hello, Personal Jesus, and so we did like 5-6 songs recorded in that session.
Okay, so you were around for most, because sorry, just I should know this because I'm such a Depeche Mode geek. So which songs were done in your studio? Not all of them. Some of them were done in another studio. Is that right?
Yeah, the
right.
Alf was done in Milano.
Yes.
And this is a Word in My Eyes, Personal Jesus, Policy of Truth, Hello. This I remember. Dangerous, I think, was done in that session. Maybe Dangerous was done in another studio while Francois Kevorkian was mixing Personal Jesus. But and then so this half of the record was done there, and the other half was done in Puck Studio in Denmark, and then everything was mixed except Personal Jesus that was mixed in Milano.
Okay, Pino, that's very interesting. So obviously your job as the in-house engineer was to assist Flood in the, producing this record. So you would do everything from managing the studio, but you would also be there to, as you say, plug things in. Mike, so you had to make sure that everything worked.
Use the desk. Yes. Manage the tapes, put microphones, use the desk, and do the everything. Yeah.
Have you? Obviously, it was a long time ago, but so far your memory seems very, very on point. So that's great. Which are there any sort of memories of any songs that were particularly difficult to get right?
Not really. I think I remember what took some time was to define an approach.
Yes.
To do the record, because one thing that really got me interested in was the fact that as a philosophical choice, they never use the sound that they have used before. So every sound has to be made from scratch. I mean, at the time it was like that. So this idea that before recording there are the demos that Martin Gore did, and the whole work was how much to keep of the demo vibe, how much to change.
Yes.
And this was a flawed work, like to try to understand what to keep, what to change. But if I have to think now that I'm much more experienced in the music making process, because fortunately I keep on engineering records, there was never like a stuck moment like what we do now. It was more like, okay, we need to do this and it takes time and we do it. And so because the work in the studio, we were working every day from noon to midnight with a break at 7 for dinner. And the working habit was almost military, like there was no time lost in hanging out, what I mean? Every day, all the time was used to make music, really concentrated, really on it, because I mean they knew it was an important record for them, and so there were these meetings in the control room where everybody was saying his opinion about the direction I was going, but it was more of a this takes time and we use the time to do it.
Yes.
But was very creative. I mean, like, for example, the stomps of Personal Jesus, they were really recorded in different places of the studio, even on there was a staircase outside the studio, because this was a 5-floor building, and this stair had a long echo if you play the sound on top and mic it at the bottom. And so we also recorded the stomps of Personal Jesus there. Then on fly cases in a drum booth in different situation, and then everything was sampled and replayed on the emulator 3. And this was like a really long process, but at the time you couldn't do it in a different way to achieve this.
Well, as you say, they didn't do things quickly. Everything had to be, every detail, and you listen to that record, and we listen to the stomps. It's a little bit like what Gareth Jones, I think he gave them the idea sort of early on, using the acoustic spaces. Of course, Flood and Gareth Jones are both, you know, geniuses in their own way. But I think if you listen to the stomping sound on that Personal Jesus, and I'm thinking now of the Francois Kevorkian mix, that the way it starts, boom, 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 you can actually hear. You can actually like hear and feel the air behind the sounds, if you know what I mean.
Yes, because the main difference with the sampling approach of before, I mean, this was already ahead of how people was working with loops later on. Because because of the technology and the small sampling time of samplers, maybe they would sample one stomp and play it only that stomp. With this, the whole pattern was recorded and then was sliced piece, stomp by stomp, and replayed for precision with the sampler. But the pattern sounded the same as when it was recorded, sound-wise. So this was the main difference, the approach to record acoustic instruments, guitars, in a real studio space, but treat it like electronic music.
Yes. Pino, you're obviously a very talented engineer and producer. So
thank you.
No, you are. I've done the research on you, and here's an interesting question. If we made Violator again today with the technology that we have today, it would probably it would be a lot easier, because, you know, technology has made things easier. But would it sound the same?
Very close, I think, because the process was the sound was almost decided before doing it. That's why it took so long. Maybe they say, oh, here we need like a synthetic hi-hat, and then the next 2 hours will be make a synthetic hi-hat. So it was not like experimenting and then picking up the best. It was more like deciding before what to do and then do it with the technology at the time. For example, there was they were really concerned about timing of MIDI, for example, which, if somebody doesn't know, it's a big issue, because MIDI is like a serial protocol. So there is a delay when you send the data out of the computer. And with their music, even like milliseconds can make a difference on the feel of the. And so we spent like, they had a synchronizer to sync the computer with MIDI to tape. And we spent a lot of time fine-tuning by half of a millisecond the offset between the tape and the computer to get it right. Now, of course, these require a keyboard button press, okay? And at the time, you had to rewind the tape, check it, rewind the tape again, check it again, change the value. So I think today will be a faster process. But not maybe a too much different sounding record.
I got you. Yeah, I mean, Depeche Mode were always pushing the frontiers of sound and technology, and we all know that. But you obviously met the band, because the band were all there. So can you clarify the rumors that obviously this was, who was there in the studio most of the time? It was you, Alan, and Flood.
And Flood.
Yeah, you three. yeah. And where were the other boys, out playing or clubbing? And
Oh, for example, Martin Gore was working in another studio doing samples.
okay.
He will get samples of record. Obviously, Dave was involved in the singing all the time, and Fletcher was involved a lot in the he was a lot in the control room to especially give direction for what kind of overall picture to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I just, and you can help me out, yeah, because I know a lot of people sometimes criticize Fletch quite badly for not actually doing much, but from like also working with Gareth Jones, Gareth has also said, you know, Fletch is not much of a natural musician, but he did have a lot of say and input and passion with regard to the, you know, the concept and the sound and everything.
I confirm this 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, and if the sound of the record depends also of the choices made for the direction, is very important as well. I mean, there are great producers who don't touch a knob or a key, and they are great anyway because of what they say. And so I agree. Yes, it was very important.
That's great. And obviously the next record, which was the Songs of Faith and Devotion record, a lot of things had gone down, and it was a very stressful and difficult record to make. And the band were at a very bad point in their relationship. What was the vibe like in the studio at this point?
I think it was very, there was a lot of concentration. You know what I mean? I think the main motor was that they knew that this record was very important because they were coming from a big American tour. They did a 101 live record, and so they had to do something to get the thing going on even further, and so I don't think there was time for personal
agendas.
And also there was this great distinction between work and fun.
Yes,
like in the studio there was work, and then after the studio we were going out in all the clubs in Milano. And so they knew that the fun will come after finishing the studio. And really, personally, I didn't feel any personal tension between them. And because I was in the control room doing following the recording aspect. So I don't know then if they were meeting in another room, what they were saying to each other. But for what I can say in the studio, there was like the usual studio discussions, which is normal.
Pino, I want to ask you about Mark Ellis, Flood. He's obviously a very talented guy, knows what he's doing. But was he very strict? Was he, obviously he can joke and be funny, but what was he fundamentally? Was he a little bit on the serious side or on the lighthearted side?
No, there was not like serious disturbing, you know what I mean? Or I'm the boss. Absolutely no. There was a lot of collaboration, but they called him also to have to use him, you know what I mean? So he was very propositive, probably because he also knew, this is my opinion, but probably because he also knew that if he didn't do enough, was not good with himself, you know what I mean? They call you to do a very important record, and you have to be sure to do the best, even to say things, even if they are not nice when it's needed or not. So he was very into it. But I mean, his ear, Flood ear, it's amazing. He came in the studio and discover a little difference in a speaker, like really minor.
Wow.
For example, when he was choosing this Shure microphone, the SM57 that was used to do the vocals. I mean, the songs in that record in the studio in Milano were recorded with a Shure SM57,
Really?
$100 microphone. Yes.
What
And
the vocals to Violator were done on a Shure SM57?
Yes. And
No.
and most of them in the control room with the speaker very loud.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, you see, my mind is blown because you see, we all look at Violator as sonic perfection, and Gareth Jones was also saying this when they did the Ultra album. He was helping with the production of that, and Martin Gore did that song called Home. You remember it? Yeah. And he said Martin sang the take that is on the record. Martin had a handheld mic in the control room with the speaker playing really loud. And then I said to Gareth, that means there was spill going into the microphone. And he went, yes, Vaughn, it doesn't matter. So, wow. Okay, so can I just say, because you get the SM58, yeah? And then
57,
you get the
57.
Yeah, well, usually the SM58 is like the industry standard vocal mic.
For vocals, yes.
Yeah, but the 57 is more for instruments.
I mean, what I think was mainly the difference is that the 58 capsule, it's made because of for not to get too close to the capsule. So it's like a protection, and there is also some foam inside for the breath and
like a wind pop shield.
Yeah, wind exactly. But with the 57, if you put a wind screen on top of it, it's the same. But what I was saying is that Flood, before choosing the 57, asked me how many 57 you have in the studio, and I say 5 or 6, and he say bring it all here, and he choose one by one which one was sounding better. Because
there are slight differences between which only he can hear, hear. Wow.
So we are talking a cheap microphone, but he will choose the best cheap microphone to record this.
Pino, can I just say, my mind, sorry guys, I'm a geek. My mind is absolutely blown because, I know a little bit about microphones. I know we get the SM58, which is like the industry standard, which is, that's an 8. But the SM57 I've known is typically an instrument mic, for miking up drums and stuff. So I just want to say this again. Violator was recorded the vocals were recorded on an SM57.
Yeah.
In the control room.
Yes, with loudspeakers.
So that means if you listen to the vocal takes, there's going to be a lot of spill in the background.
Yeah, but also because Dave has this loud voice.
Yeah.
With the gate, when he's singing loud on the microphone, it's like the microphone is compressing everything else. So when he's actually singing, you don't hear much spill. You hear it
because the
when
gate
he's not singing.
Yeah.
It's like, then with the gate, you fix this thing. So when he's not singing, the gate closes, and when he's singing, it's loud enough to cover the outside the spill. So it was not really a problem.
Wow. My mind is absolutely blown because I would have thought they would have probably used something like a Neumann UA87 or
We tried it. I mean, we tried this approach with the Neumann in the recording room with the monitor, the headphone, and everything, but the performance was not half as good. Because David, is a performer, and when he was in the control room with this microphone, I mean, in my experience, it happened to a lot of singers. That when they sing without thinking, they sing better than.
So when they were in the control room singing, did they have headphones on or no?
No,
just through the
speakers. Yes,
wow,
yes.
Wow. Okay, so you said that Dave Vaughn, he sings very loud. Is he?
Yeah.
Very loud. What about Martin? Is he singing quite softly when he records?
Yeah, Martin was using a Bruden Creel microphone. Now it's called DPA. You know the DPA.
Which one was that? Sorry, Pino.
DPA brand, the DPA of today. At the time was called Bruel and Creel. They were doing a microphone for measurement, for acoustic measurement, and Martin brought this microphone, and he was doing all these vocals with this microphone in the proper room with headphones, like a.
Oh, I see. So Martin was in the vocal booth, but Dave was in the control room with the loudspeaker. Wow. Yeah, because I get this idea that he sings very softly.
Yeah, probably, yes. I mean, from the control room, you can't tell because you hear the
of course,
amplified sound, so you don't know. But
yeah, but with Dave, it's really very, very strong.
And I mean, he was doing a lot of guitars too, Martin. All the guitars of Personal Jesus was done acoustically. He had a Gretsch.
Yes, he loves his Gretsch. Pino, can I just say this is an absolutely mind-blowing interview, really. I can tell you my guys are going to love this. And I'm going to tell you, we're going to have to get you on again, my friend, if it's okay with you, because I also want to talk a bit about you and your career and everything that you're up to. Because, you know, it's I see there's a lovely studio you've got there. I might want to interview you on my Geek Talk series where we talk about your studio and what you've done.
Okay.
But so please, jumping back into this though, the demos of Violator, I haven't heard many of the demos. So can you tell us? What I've heard the demo of Enjoy the Silence, which is just like a harmonium, like pad sound. But what were the demos like? Were they very simplistic?
Some, yes, some are very produced.
All right.
But what the reason why Martin, I think, was not too much involved in the studio. I mean, he was involved, but not when they were programming sounds. He was not involved much in the studio. Was that he was confident that the song was already there? You know,
he had done his part. Yeah.
He's done his part, and so he was and so the demo was like the reference, and sometimes the demo will be the reference to turn it in a. We say when you are at school in Bella Copia that you write a draft and then you write it for real.
Yes.
To the teacher, no? Was the same thing. Like everything was already there, was just to make it better and more polished. And but some other songs were completely created in the studio.
I see.
Respecting every melody, because this is important. All the demos. He had on this BBC computer. This BBC is a computer from the 80s that the good thing about everybody was using Atari or Commodore, early Macintosh, but this BBC computer had a really old school screen, like with almost no graphics, only numbers. But his strength was that it had 4 MIDI outputs in the computer. So the MIDI was really tight compared to getting a MIDI interface for a Macintosh, for example. So all the parts of his demos were already in the computer. So the notes were already there. So just press play on that track and it will play the same note as the demo. So in that case, the idea was just to replace the sound, for example. So even if he was not in the studio, but his parts were playable through the computer.
So that's interesting. So you took the MIDI data and you triggered other synthesizers. So it was still the parts that he played, but it was done. So that's very interesting, man. I tell you what, Pino, this is amazing information that we haven't even heard from Flood. It really is. This is really amazing. Okay, so I know during the making of Violator, Flood said that I think you spoke about the songs, but I think the first song, correct me if I'm wrong, that they kind of got finished was or started on was World in My Eyes, and then they went out clubbing, and then I think Fletch and Dave called Flood aside and they said, we're not really feeling this. And then he went, okay. And then then of course they redefined the concept and then they got so what do you remember what that initial version of World in My Eyes sounded like or the direction it was going?
No.
Yeah, because a long time ago.
If it was 30 years ago, and 30 years I heard so much music. No, actually, now that you say, I remember this, that we redid something in World in My Eyes. But probably, I don't think was, I don't remember if it was the next day or after working on some other song, they decided also to redo World in My Eyes. I don't remember well this.
Now, well, I must say your memory is very, very good so far. So this is great. So it's brilliant. Yeah. So, talking about the demos and how we get to the finished product, Enjoy the Silence is a track that it's been well documented. We know how it started. And then I think Alan and were you there with Alan?
No, because they did in Denmark.
Oh, that was, you didn't do Enjoy the Silence. Okay. So, because I know that obviously Martin will come up with his song. He's got the demo, and then Alan will reinterpret it. So was there any sort of, I don't want to say conflict, but were there any moments where Martin would go, no, I don't like that? Or did he just leave it to Alan and Flood and you?
Yeah, there were, but this is normal in every record I've been involved with. I mean, it's like changing. I think if something is good, it's good. And if you are not, can you say masochist?
Narcissist, yeah.
Yeah, like that you are happy if something is bad. If you are not like that,
I see.
When you hear something good, you keep it. And when something it's I mean, at the end of the day, it was a day record, and they had to promote it and play it live and be comfortable with it. So for sure, Martin that wrote the songs, if he was not happy with something, he would say it, and they will listen to him and do something else. I mean, this is normal in every process of making a record. So I don't find it strange. I mean, it will be strange the opposite. If everything they did, they say, "Oh, nice," because that means you're
not passionate. So did you obviously met Francois Kevorkian as well?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing was that for the mix of Personal Jesus, the band left the studio. So because they don't wanted to disturb Francois. And so they book another studio for 5 days, and I think it's where they went to record Dangerous. Is Dangerous the B-side of Personal Jesus?
It is indeed, and it's actually I think the best B-side on that collection. I think it could have gone onto the album. I think personally, so strong.
Yeah, and so they left the studio, went to booked this other studio in Milano. And so for 5 days left Francois Kevorkian. He brought this engineer from New York called Dennis Mitchell, and me, that I recorded the song. So the three of us were there doing the mix. I mean, Francois did the mix. Francois was chosen because of his work with Kraftwerk, I think.
Yeah.
And just being there, watching him, for me, was the best school ever in my life. He on the mixing desk, he played the mixing desk like an instrument, really. And the creation, being so creative with effects and stuff. And then if he decided, for example, that one part need to be added, he will call them. Maybe Alan will come in the studio for a couple of hours and do this overdub. I remember it was a mini Moog overdub at a certain point, and then leave again. And because it was done the mix of the single and the extended version.
Yeah.
And for the extended version, first of all, he wanted to include these fake preachers speeching.
Yeah.
That are in the extended. I don't know even if they are the record. Maybe they are all in the extended version.
Yeah, it's got.
And there are some.
Yeah. It's the Lord Jesus Christ himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is 1989. Today, you go on the internet and look for it, right?
Yeah.
Download it and use it. At
Yeah.
the time, he had to call this friend in LA to send him a cassette with all these samples. So there was a time where after 3 days, we were waiting for the courier to deliver the cassette. The desk was stuck. Nobody could touch the desk because the mix was set up. So there was so fun. Then the cassette arrives and we sampled all the phrases and then he used it. And then to do the extended version, this is very funny. To do the extended version, I did the longest session in the studio in my life. I stayed for 40 hours, 40.
Wow.
Because I remember let's say after the next morning, Francois Kevorkian had to leave. He had already mixed the single, and this was the extended version. Okay, so he had to leave the next morning. He had the flight booked and everything. He had to go to Japan through LA, very tight schedule.
Yeah.
And so we work day or night. And I was saying, of one thing I'm sure, that tomorrow morning he's going to leave. And finally I can rest because I was dead.
Yeah.
And then we are at 9 a.m. with the taxi waiting outside. He listened to the tape because at the time the extended version was done mixing in pieces and then assembled it to tape. So he listened to the tape, taxi's outside, okay, we are finished. And he says, no, this is too short. We need another 30 seconds here.
Oh.
And I say, what? He say, yes, please cancel my taxi, cancel everything. I get another flight. But we need 30 seconds more in this version. I say, okay. I mean, and to myself, I was so, because at the time, Dennis Mitchell left already, the other engineer. So it was only me and him. And I say to myself, I mean, if this person with all this schedule and everything already organized, he was ready to throw everything away, to move everything, change everything just for 30 seconds of the extended version that was already 6 minutes. Wow. And so he canceled everything and he spent the next 5 hours, 6 hours to do the 30-second missing, doing dubbing with the desk, effects and stuff. And so then he leaves in the afternoon. He say, okay, I go. And you play the band when they come in, right? And the band, of course, they had heard the single already. So the single was already like a... And so he goes, I stay there. Obviously, I had to repatch all the keyboards that they brought in the other studio. So it took me forever. And then I play them the extended version. They listened to it, obviously amazed by the result, but I don't remember who said, maybe it's 30 seconds too long.
Really?
Yeah. And so I say, no, listen. I told the story because they didn't knew that he was staying all night, cancel all the flights. And I said, listen, this is what happened. And they say, okay, let's leave it like this. And they left it because he spent so much energy to doing this. And then when the single was finished, Daniel Miller came in the studio. He came many times during the sessions, but then he came, took the master, brought it to London, have it mastered in I think 5 studios to do the vinyl, the cutting, and then came back 2 days later with these 5 records, print masters. We put a turntable in the control room and listened all 5 of the 12 inches, and they pick the best.
Wow.
And say, okay, this is the master. So that's the level of detail and professionalism.
That is amazing. So they have it mastered by 5 different mastering engineers
in London.
And they compare them.
Yes.
And isn't it's probably quite difficult, Pino, like, you know, when you've been working on something for that long, to be objective.
Yes.
So
but in a way, the Personal Jesus mix was very creative. And so when they heard it, was like something new, not something, because at the time, the mixing process was very important for a record. It is today, but now we are in a way that producer can give to the engineer to mix a almost finished product, like sound-wise. At the time, because you were recording analog, and every song was sounding different, you didn't have the final mix until you did it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So so when the Personal Jesus mix was finished, was like a surprise, because they heard the song as a finished thing, as something to be released for the first time. And obviously they were. I think that was already also like a test for Francois Kevorkian, because they had to mix the rest of the record. And of course they did it with him because it was great.
Yes.
And so that's the story of the remix of Personal Jesus, the extended version.
Wow.
And all the photos were done in Milan of the cover. Were done in, Milan at the time, it still is today, but at the time was a rocking place. It was a lot of clubbing, was really...
Yeah. A lot of soul, a lot of vibe.
Yes.
Wow, this is really, really mind-blowing. So Francois Kevorkian, I heard that he's quite intense to work with. He's very, very intense because he's very passionate. Is that true?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And then he was telling stories about Kraftwerk, about many stories. I mean, he in a certain kind of music, because he was coming from dance music, New York dance music, but not disco later on.
Yeah.
And electronic, he really knew how to do it. I mean, then he became a DJ. Now he's a famous DJ. But at the time, he was not even a DJ. He was just doing great mixing on for records. He was a very creative engineer. You know what I mean? Using effects in a way that, you know, coming in Italy, I never seen no Italian engineers doing this sort of things. It's like you play. It's like you work you do cooking at home, and then you go in the best restaurant in the world to see the chef preparing something. And was that step? And for me, and then Flood came to mix Dangerous at Logic, because when then Francois Kevorkian left, Personal Jesus was finished, so they had to mix Dangerous to do the B-side. And so I assisted him, and I watched him working on the desk. And again, this is like top level engineers ever.
Wow.
Like
Pino, what is the story on, I know Enjoy the Silence, you might not know the answer to this, but on Violator, everything is mixed by Francois except for Enjoy the Silence. Why is that?
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, you see, a lot of people didn't know that, and I'm always trying to hear the story, because the whole record is mixed by Francois Kevorkian, but the Enjoy the Silence version on Violator, I believe, is done by Daniel Miller. So I don't know what the reason for that is. Some people say that apparently because there is a version of Francois out there, and some people prefer that to the album version, but I don't know what the reason for that is. It's interesting.
No, probably could be that the record was finished and Francois already left.
Probably.
And probably Daniel Miller thought that it could be different, or maybe better, or maybe different. and so they went in the studio and did it.
So
this is what I think could have happened.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, because at the end of the day, it comes down to, you know, obviously Francois Kevorkian, one of the best. Daniel Miller's very good as well. Flood's one of the best. So, but then sometimes there's just a taste. Sometimes you might go, yeah, maybe the vibe wasn't right or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think if was done at the end, like after finishing everything, listening to it, and maybe deciding that the song can be done in a different way. And because they could do it, they did it instead of having him flying back. And also at the time, there was no total recall. So when a mix was finished, and there was no way to modify it again. Now with Pro Tools or whatever we use, you make a call, turn the guitar up or take away that reverb. And we can record the mix exactly the same and do these changes and reprint it. At the time, this was not possible. When a mix was finished, printed, then was it.
Yes. And also, in the case of Francois saying, cancel my flight, cancel my taxi. These days, that wouldn't be necessary. You could have added 30 seconds quite easily.
Yeah, exactly.
But then again, you wouldn't have such an interesting story to tell, would you?
No, this is really was something. You know, it's I don't remember things of last week. If you ask me which song did you mix last week, I say probably I don't remember. I remember, but a month ago maybe I don't remember. And this is 30 years ago, and still I remember everything because you know I was young, I was new to this. And I had this opportunity that I don't even now believe could have happened. And so I really tried to do my best to not be fired in a way.
Well, you know, mate, your name is on the credits, and what an honor, what a fantastic achievement. Wow, absolutely. Listen, Pino, I'm going to say, because this is 1 hour and it's gone so fast.
Wow.
I'm gonna put you on the spot here. I'm gonna ask you if you wouldn't mind to come on for another chat, because what I would like to do is because this video is going to come out on this Sunday on my channel, and I can promise you it's going to get a lot of traffic. And I would like to ask the community to send me questions that we can ask you. And if that's okay with you, I'd like to come on again and do another part. But also in that part, I would like to talk about you, your studio, what you're doing, and how people can contact you. Is that something you'd be happy to do?
Fine, absolutely. Yes.
Great.
We can do both next time.
And also, I must just say, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. You are so easy to interview and to talk to. You really are.
I hope my English was good enough, but
your English is fine. And can I just say, that's your studio you're in at the moment?
Yes.
Go on. It looks amazing.
In January, I just changed this studio. I'm here since 13 years. And in January, I changed the room to do Dolby Atmos mixing. So I have that's why you see speakers in the back.
I see, yeah.
And so I want to start doing, actually I did already a couple of projects, and I want to just to keep me always updated and find new things to be interested, because you know it's 30 years I work in the studio, actually 34, and every few years I need to find a new way of working, and
yes, of course,
because otherwise it can get not exciting anymore. You know what I mean? Doing the same thing every day for 35 years.
I'm sure. Pino, you got a website?
It's the name of my studio with just few pictures. You can see. I think in my email, if my signature has got the link to the studio.
Okay.
I don't know if you have seen this. If you watch it, there are pictures of the studio. So there are not even a phone number.
I see. No, it's on a need to know basis. I like that.
Yeah.
So to you guys watching, I'm going to put links to Pino in the description below, and then Pino, to you, as I say, I want to come back on when it's convenient with you, and I want to get some questions that the community would like to ask you.
Okay.
But I want to say thank you so much. I'm so grateful for this interview.
Thanks to you.
This has been such a great hour, and we've learned so much. I can't wait to speak to you again.
Thank you very much.
Grazie, amico. Grazie.
Grazie.
Ciao. Ciao.
Ciao, 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 ciao.